Hey, what's up? So, this episode is a recording of a workshop that I did on end of year strategy. And it's going to be super practical, tactical, and how I think about major gift strategy and fundraising strategy in general, and specifically geared towards the end of the year. This is going to be super helpful to you. Please enjoy. Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for being here. What is your fundraising goal? If you haven't shared that yet, do it. So, we're going to today go through and map out what your roadmap is to your goal and how you're going to get there. And we're going to go through a few different things. The first is we're going to go through my strategy document, which is just 2 pages and it's super simple. Simple strategy. Okay. That's my style. Those are the vibes. Simplicity. Are you down for that? And I'll walk you through what works for me, what's worked for me in the past to get to goal, particularly for the end of the year. And then we'll talk through ask amounts. And I'm going to share my framework for that. And then we're going to go through projections. So we have a lot to cover today, and you're going to have time where we will workshop it together. And so you will volunteer a donor specific scenario that you want to workshop together aloud. I encourage you to use an alias or use just their first name. Don't use your whole donor's name. Let's not be doing that. And you can get my feedback and coaching and thoughts around ask amounts. But before that, we'll go through the framework. You'll have access to that document so you can refer to it. And then you'll have your own time to workshop on your own and do some of this strategy planning. And I can answer questions. So, you with me? Sound good? Okay, great. So the first up is our simple strategy. We're going to walk through this. This is the first thing. So a strategy is a theory, and it's also based on data. So it's not like a theory that's made up and it's no basis in reality, right? But that's what a strategy is. It's a theory. If I do something, I'm going to be more likely to get this result. It's not a guarantee, right? It's not a guarantee. It's like you're betting, you're making a bet. You're saying, if I do these things, I'm going to increase the likelihood of getting this outcome. You cannot control the outcome. We cannot control how much people give or if they give at all, right? So my theory here is if I connect with more people who are mission aligned and obviously have wealth, and if I ask for higher amounts, are you catching that? And if I'm asking for higher amounts, then I'm going to raise more than I did last year and build a pipeline of future donors. That is a key component of my strategy every single time. You can't miss that. If you're asking for small increases, like, oh, would you give, 10% more of what you gave last year? Then is your goal just 10% more than last year? Right? It's like usually our goals are pretty ambitious. So I'm saying here that my goal is 500K in cash. And here's my North Star. Here's my guiding light. Does it help me raise 500,000? No, then I ain't doing it. And some of you have a board or you have a boss or someone who, let's just say it, let's just call a spade a spade. They're ignorant. We love them. Bless them. God bless them. But they don't know. They're like, Sheena, could you do this thing over here? This thing that is nothing to do with raising $488,000. And you're like, no, I don't have time for that. So there's a whole training on that. But some of you need to get better at advocating for your own time. And you know what you need to do to get done to get this goal. Right? And it ain't a bunch of noise. So I just tell people up front when I do have a boss, because I'm usually a pain in their ass anyway. I'm like, hey, if it isn't going to help me raise 500K, then I ain't doing it. Oh, you wanted me to go to that meeting. Oh, I'm not going to make it. Yeah, I'm not going to make that meeting. it's not going to help me raise 500K. Are you hearing what I'm saying? Like, some of you need to do that. You know what it is that you got to get off your calendar. You know that. I don't. You do. So, like, it's time. So I like to work backwards from the goal. I guess grammatically it's backward, but I say backwards. Whatever. All right. Starting with identifying any donors who are in my database now, who can, and this is the question I ask myself. Okay, if my goal is 500K, do I have somebody who could write a check for 500K? That's how I think. This is how I think. I'm like, is there one donor who could write the whole check? Some of you, maybe. You probably do. Is there somebody, are there two donors who could give 250, five who could give 100K? Do you see where I'm going with this? Is this not the simplest way to raise $500,000? Yes. It's better than doing an event. It's better than doing a 5K. It's better than doing your boring ass gala. It's better than doing all, yes. One donor, one meeting, two meetings, and 3 emails, roughly, let's say, right, per donor. Great. So that's how I think about it. I'm working backward. And typically, to get to your goal, it's going to be usually 20 donors. So you may not know this, there's an 80-20 principle that 80% of results come from the 20% of your effort. That it applies to virtually anything, right? And the same is true for fundraising, that 80% of your revenue comes from 20% of your donors, of 20% of the effort that you put in. So your top 20 donors, that's where this goal is going to come from, typically. And some of us want to overcook the grits. We're like, oh, I have a donor list that's, 1,000 people. How am I going to reach out to all these people? And it's just wrong thinking. You can't. Unless you're doing like mass marketing and email campaigns, which is great. But again, if you want simple, right? Those things supplement it. This is how I like to think about getting to 500K. I'd ask people who've had a great experience and are really close for an additional gift, particularly DAF donors, donor advised funds. So that's just a charitable giving account with money set aside for charity. It can't be used for anything else, and it's just sitting there, right? So it doesn't matter to a DAF donor what time of year they give to you. I'd ask those folks for an additional gift. The average DAF size is 100K to 110K, FYI. So that's average. I mean, it's not a great indicator necessarily of maybe what your donors have in their DAF, but we'll see what the updated stats are on that when we turn the corner into 2025. And I would leverage non-liquid assets. I would particularly ask for gifts of appreciated stock. I would ask for people to give from, if they're, older, if they're in their 70s, I'd ask to give from their retirement account, right? They're not penalized for that. And it's just money that's sitting there and they can give it directly to you. So that's the first thing that I would do. And then I'm going to take you through my brand new, you're the first to see it. It's my Ask Amount ebook. But how do I consider ask amounts, right? And I just touch on this here, but we're going to dive deeper into this in a minute, okay? Based on your organization's strategic plan and your goals, I'm looking at how passionate is the donor on a scale of 1 to 10 or 0 to 10. To what extent do they trust us? What's their capacity in terms of their financial capacity? And what have they said or done? Things that I can observe to indicate their interest in giving. So have they said to me, right? Have they said to you, Aaron, Musana is our favorite organization. You're number one. Ooh, I would take that all the way to the bank, right? I would be like, oh, great. So since we're your number one, right? And that frames the ask. that actually frames the way that I see the donor and how I relate to them. So I get to know people really well. Okay. And I ask about where their wealth comes from. I ask about what makes them tick. Not just so that I can raise money, but also because I'm just genuinely interested. I'm so curious. And when I find out the juice, that informs me, oh, now I've seen all your cards. You see? And you can't hide. You shouldn't have told me. You know what I'm saying? You shouldn't, you said too much. You know what I'm saying? You shouldn't have told me we were your number one. Bill? Why are you telling me that, Bill? Okay, so, and I love to find, I'm like, hey, so you said we're your number one. You said that, and I just say back to them what they said. I say it back. And they're like, oh, damn, you listen? Oh, damn, you're right. I did say that, didn't I? Oh my gosh. So some of you do know your donors like that, and it's just going to take guts and clear communication to articulate what you're inviting them to be a part of, right? And then how would I get this done? I would focus on one-on-one meetings first and foremost. And you have a much better rate of success in person than you do in any other form. But if you can't meet in person, then fine. Do Zoom, do a phone call. Email is going to be a lot easier to ignore. And even in your follow-up, I suggest picking up the phone or texting. It really depends on what the donor's preference is and where they are at with you and their preferred form of communication. And I would start submitting proposals. I'd ask people for permission to submit a proposal. So I would say, hey, look, we're looking to raise, 500K by the end of the year. You're the top of my list. Can I send you a six-figure proposal to look at? Would you consider that? And then get those out. And then I would send meaningful updates once a week, every other week. It just depends on the donor and the scenario. And then they could be just, hey, was just thinking about you, wanted to send you this really cool update or this great story. And it could be really simple and it doesn't actually have anything to do with their gift, but it reminds them to think of you. That's what I do. And events, you don't have to do this, right? It would be if you had donors who were motivated and they wanted to do it, then great, but don't force it. You could get this, you could achieve 500K by just doing one-on-one meetings, and that's it. So again, if that stresses you out, don't do it. If any of this stresses you out and you're like, I don't want to do that, don't do it. Hey, here's an idea. This is just what I do, okay? I know what's worked for me. But these are all tools meant for you to adapt for your own purposes. Yes? Great. We're going to talk about ask amounts. So, great. If you go to the second page, here are the factors that I consider in determining ask amounts. So, the first is the organization. So, what's your size in terms of annual budget? Mostly, but it could be employees, number of people impacted. How effective are you? Do you have a vision? What is your vision for impact? What are your goals? What do you actually need to raise? The second is, who is the donor, right? So to what extent do they trust you as an organization? How mission aligned are you? What's their financial capacity? In that order. Because some of your less wealthy donors outgive your wealthy donors. You know this, right? And then the third is you. The other factor to consider is you. You could have the most mission aligned, rich, kind person and have these huge goals, but you got to actually ask them. And so sometimes the reality is we just don't have the courage yet or the skill level yet to ask for the big gift that is right there as a result of our effectiveness and the trust and the donor and the mission alignment. And the audaciousness. You actually have to have the guts to say it out loud. And you have to have the skill to communicate, to articulate what it is that you're looking to do and the offer. Yes? These are the 3 factors. Here's how I evaluate that. I kind of already went into strategic plan and goals and how much you need to raise, and that's kind of obvious. So I'm not really going to dive deeper into that, except to say that if you have a multi-year strategic plan, you can ask for multi-year pledges, and you should be. This like going back every 6 months and asking for money, right? Hello, unsustainable. Yuck. If somebody's been giving to you for years, then it stands to reason they would make a multi-year pledge. Yes? Yeah. So how about let's do that? If you don't have a strategic plan, you are going to struggle with asking for multi-year gifts. It's just, why? Oh, you need $5 million over 5 years. Why do you need that? Right? The next is the donor. Let's look at their heart and their hands. So why do they give? What can they give? And what are they willing to give? That's what I look at. And this is based on things they've done and said. And yes, I have an intuition. So do you. Yes, I have instincts. Some of you, your instincts are probably a little off because maybe you haven't really been doing this for very long yet. Or you underestimate where you stand with the donor. And so that's why asking powerful questions is going to get you to better data. And then you, the fundraiser. So how do I measure courage? The first is, what number can you say out loud? Do you have the chutzpah to ask someone for $1 million? Can you say that out loud? Right? Can you say, Catherine, I'd love for you to consider giving $1 million over the course of 3 years. And then, you can evaluate your own level of how chicken are you to how courageous are you. And that's the truth. And that's okay. There's no judgment here. Like I remember starting out, I thought I was terrified to ask for $2,000. That was a lot of money, and it scared me so much. And I sweat through my suit. And, I was meeting a partner at a firm, and $2,000 to him was like almost nothing, I think. But for me, it was huge. And it was a step towards asking for 5 and 10 and 20 and 50 and 100 and 1 million and 2 million and 10 million. And part of this is having the self-awareness to know, where are you at? What can you actually articulate? And what are you willing to do? To what extent are you willing to be uncomfortable? That is a factor. So organization, donor, and you. Those are the 3 main factors. What are your goals? How big are you? How effective are you? The donor, how much do they trust you? How passionate are they? What's their capacity? And then you, what's your skill level? What's your courage level? It's basically, that's it. That's what I consider. Okay, so then let's jump into the projections planner. This is so fun. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Okay, so this is made up here. Amber Williams, made up. Don't know her. She's a made up person. And I'm going to walk you through this. So this is an example of a donor who in 2022, in September, they gave 27,368. That amount to me usually signals that they gave a gift of stock, typically, because it's an odd number. 2023, 50K, great. So far this year to date, YTD year to date, they gave 10K. And then I'm going to ask for 50K. This is totally made up. This is a made up person. Part of why I think 50 is because I'd like to see her get back up to what she gave previously. We're not her number 1 favorite. The status of this is cultivation. You can change that if you've already asked. If it's a verbal yes, if it's a written pledge, donated, you're in the engagement stage, they declined. You can write here your next steps. Now, I'm putting the probability at 80% because of whatever factors there are with Amber Williams. She says that she still wants to help us. Her business isn't doing great, but it's not struggling either. So I feel pretty confident because she's been giving for years. So 80% is pretty high. So I'm projecting that I'm going to get 40K from Amber, right? Because 80% of 50 is 40. Are you with me? So we're going to do this with specific donors and I'll workshop it with you. And then you're going to have a bit of time to go through this document and plug it in on your own. And if you have questions, I'm happy to workshop it with you. So who would like to go first? You can unmute, you can share briefly who the donor is. Again, I recommend that you use an alias or just their first name. And then the scenario, what they gave previously, kind of the things that we've talked about, those factors. And then let's talk about your ask amount.
I'll get started, I guess. That's okay.
Great. Yeah.
So I have a donor, fake name Karen David. She
Great.
gave 25K in 2022, 25K in 2023. I've met with her once before, and then the reason I think she's a really good candidate for us is her daughter also did like a school drive for us. So, and we wrote an article about it. So I think there's some closeness there. But she hasn't responded to an email.
And what's your organization?
We're a Centria Care Alliance. We do human services in New England.
Got it. Okay, great.
Yeah.
And what would you say Karen's passion level is 0 to 10?
I think I would put her at a solid 8. She does similar work that we do, but in the for-profit world, lawyer stuff. So I think she really likes us. I know she has capacity. I'm not sure exactly what. Um, I just know that the biggest thing for her is she has no time.
Right.
That's
Okay.
what she's shared with me before, is that she's very, very busy. So
Yes,
I
yes.
guess,
That's great.
yeah.
Tell me what your goal is.
For her, I'd love to get her up to, she's pretty steady at this 25, but I think she could do 40.
Tell me what your fundraising goal is. Sorry.
Oh, for the next 3 months for major donors, I'm looking at 150K.
Okay. And does Centria, are y'all in the middle of a strategic plan?
Not one that's been eloquently written down.
Okay. So do you know what you need to raise next year or the following fiscal year and the impact of that?
It's going to be in the millions in the next in the future. But right now, I'm really kind of just trying to jumpstart a stewardship program for our major donors. So
Got it.
we're trying to, yeah, come to you for getting things going, getting
Yeah,
a
that's
start.
great. You're doing great, Jillian. You're doing great. Let's get this money. So you're thinking 40K.
Yeah.
Okay, walk me through 40K.
40K specifically for this program that she's really interested in that's related to her work. It would help us close a gap that exists in that program. And she understands, I think, more than I do, even the importance of that in the community. So I think she could follow up from what she's done in the past and increase. It's not a total double of what she's done in the past, but it's enough.
Okay. What do you think is the probability that she'll give 40K based on what she said to you, based on her behavior, her passion, her trust in the organization?
I'm going to put it at 50%.
50.
I'm not bullish here.
Why not?
I think because of the three factors you mentioned before, the third one being that I'm not very brave at this part.
Okay. Well, make the ask amount based on, so the probability is about what you think the donor will do, not about your courage, Jillian.
Okay.
Because are you saying that you're willing to ask her for 40K?
Yeah,
Okay.
or at
Yeah.
least our organization. Yeah.
Yeah, you seem committed to that. Okay. So based on Karen, what do you think is the probability she'll give 40K?
All right, I'll bump it up to 75%.
Okay. All right. So then you're thinking you're going to get 30, which is 5K more than last year.
Okay.
That feel right to you?
No, I think we can do better than that. All right, I'm going to push this up to 85%.
Okay. So that's 34,000 that you're
That's better.
projecting she'll give. Yeah, you think that's accurate?
I think so.
So depending on your courage level, your probability may go up or down. So if you're taking a bigger swing, your probability is going to be closer to 50K or 50%, excuse me. So if you're asking somebody for bigger money, you should be a bit more conservative, right? But you're saying here, I think it's 85% likely. So then, Jillian, if you wanted to take a bigger swing, because that's a pretty high probability, right? You could ask for 50. It may lower the probability, but if you don't ask for 50, you absolutely will not get 50. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So you got to think about this as a bit of a negotiation. You're looking to see, you've identified someone who is passionate, 8 out of 10, that's really good, and has been giving for years, correct? So
Uh, just 2 years that she's been
2
giving,
years.
but it's always been at that level.
Great. So but you're not sure what the high end of her capacity is.
Not right now, but I can definitely dig. I can definitely find out
Right.
more.
And if you ask for 40 and she comes back and says yes, right, then that's a great indicator that there's likely more there. And that could be a really great step to position you for next year. You see?
Right.
Because then when y'all get your strategic plan written down, or well, the scenario there, then that could better position you for 150,000 over the course of 3 years. And then all you got to worry about is stewarding Karen, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I like that. I like that you're asking for more. I think that's good. I think it's great. I can sense from you, Jillian, you're stretching yourself. That's good. Really good. I like it. So what's your next step for Karen?
I'm gonna try again to get a meeting with her.
Okay.
Um,
By when?
Last year she gave in October, so I want to do a meeting in October again before she gives her gift. So we can talk about it.
Great. It's awesome. Well done. Okay, Jillian. Good job. Love it. Who's next?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go for it.
So when we have gift amounts and gift dates, I have a lot of donors who give multiple gifts in the year. So would you recommend just putting the aggregate of how much they gave last year and just the last gift date?
Yeah, I think it matters less. Most donors give multiple times during the year. That's great.
And then if you know that they like to give multiple times a year rather than in one big lump, how does that inform when you ask or how much you ask for? Or do you say, hey, I know you like to give multiple times a year, here's what I'm suggesting? Or do you just ask for a single gift at a certain time? Or does that change your strategy?
Yeah. So I just talk to people about their cumulative giving and say, hey, last year you overall gave $150,000. Um, would you consider giving 200K? So, and you can break it out for them, right? You can, because they probably don't remember when they gave or how much. So you could say, you gave once in April, you gave another time in October, then you gave another gift in December. That's great. Would you be willing to do that again? And over the course of those 3 gifts, give a total of 20K or whatever it is. That's great. I would find out why. Why do they give those times of year? And it's usually because we ask at those times, not because they care about April or October or December. So you can decide to get out in front of it and ask for, if 2024 is already spoken for, great. Let's talk about 2025 right now. Why not?
Thanks.
I mean, thank you. Matt, go for it.
All right. So I have donors, let's call them the Lins,
Great.
and they've given 10,000 each of the last 4 years.
Ooh, cool.
So I'm meeting with them in 4 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm hoping to ask for 100,000
Ooh,
over 2 years,
great.
but I'd be willing to say 3 or 4 years, depending on
Sure.
how they respond.
Yeah, plan B. I like it. Okay. Walk me through. So have they given anything yet so far this year?
No, they always give
Okay.
in December.
Got it. And what's their form of giving, Matt? Do they give a check or?
A check.
Uh-huh. Okay. And are they working? Are they,
Yeah. Partner
what's,
at a law firm.
uh-huh. Okay. So do they give personally, or is this their firm giving?
Personally.
Got it. And how mission aligned would you say they are?
Massively.
Massively. What are your fundraising goals?
Yeah, 200,000 for the end of the year.
Okay. And then do you know what it is for next year?
Next year overall is 400,000.
Aha. Okay. Okay. I like it. I like the 100K. That's great. What do you think is the probability they'll give 100K over 2 years?
I think they could easily give it without batting an eye. The question is that jump from 10 to 50 too much to ask? I know the answer is no, but I'm just preparing myself if I kind of get that wide open eye look.
Okay. I think it has to do with how you position it and why them. And it seems like you have really good reasons why them. It sounds like you know them really well. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Great. So what would you, based on their behavior, based on things they've said and done, what would you say is the probability of 100K over 2 years?
I would say probably 50-50.
Great. So based on that, I like that. Based on that, then at minimum, you're projecting 50K, which is great. Because that's a big increase from what they've been doing. And that helps you out, right?
Totally.
Yeah. Love it. I like it. That's good. Go,
All right.
Matt. Any else regarding the lens, Matt?
No, just yeah, getting ready to do it.
Great.
Courage.
Yeah, it's great. I would focus on why them, and when you do that, it's going to make a lot of sense to you and to them. Cash. What's up, Cash? How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm great.
All right. I have a fun one, maybe. So, in full disclosure, I work with Jill, so I don't want to monopolize too much. Who went first with Amber Williams? Or no,
Okay, sure. Yeah.
And one of the things that Jill and I are struggling with is we are kind of inheriting, after a couple years, a fairly defunct, for lack of a better word, development department, right? So we have a small amount of major donors, a small donor pool period for a really large regional organization, right?
Okay.
And we haven't, so Jill kind of mentioned, we're trying to jumpstart a stewardship and ask a solicitation program, like all the traditional development activities that weren't really happening due to some interim staffing issues and various things, right?
Uh-huh.
So I've got a guy, we'll call him John Cooney, if you want. 2022, I think he gave about $5,000.
Uh-huh.
Did not give in 2023.
Ooh.
Um, Jill can correct me if I'm wrong, but so he used to work for the organization. He was on the board prior, and he was in private banking prior. His capacity is
Mm.
significantly greater than these gifts. And so I think I want to re-engage in the relationship. And I think the question is, so I can, you know, I think where I hesitate, I don't actually have a problem with the courage in terms of asking gift amounts sometimes. I think where I get stuck is we haven't done a good job stewarding a relationship. He used to be my boss. I haven't talked to him in a year and a half.
Ah,
He hasn't talked to my knowledge. Maybe he hasn't talked to anyone at the agency. Um, and so we owe him. I feel like we owe him better stewardship. And so I think the ask is, my question to you, Julie, is do I go in and simply say, "Hey, John, how have you been? So sorry we haven't been in touch," kind of reconnect. And then right off the bat, kind of let them know, like, "Hey, the financial need's there. And maybe no one's asked you before, but we want to ask you for this." And I think that's my hesitation, right? I don't want to, part of me wants to solicit the relationship a little more earnestly initially before I have a big ask. Do you know what I mean? It feels inauthentic.
yeah, then that's what you should do. Your gut is right and you should follow it.
Right.
So I would recommend that's not really what today is for, but in terms of like this scenario, you should check out my program Courage Lab because that's really the fundamentals of building major gifts. That's what that's really all about. So I wouldn't ask this gentleman for anything. Asking for his time may be already an ask. Like that would be a huge step forward in the relationship
Understood.
for
Yeah.
like getting his time, right? And your instinct of like, it feels inauthentic, like, yeah, because yeah. Like if you can just go to him and something I talk about in Courage Lab is acknowledge the awkward. So if it feels awkward, acknowledge it. Hey, we haven't talked to you in a year and a half and we've failed you. I can't tell you how many times I've said something like that. And I didn't even work there a year and a half ago. Right?
Right.
It's like, so much of our work is rooted in humility and taking ownership and, sometimes just owning the current reality, even if it wasn't your fault. Like the donor doesn't care.
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, you represent the organization and you guys, yeah. So what I would do is acknowledge it and then say, and here's how it's going to be moving forward, right? You can expect that I'll give you an update every 6 months. Do you want to hear from us? But I really wouldn't ask for a gift unless you feel like you absolutely have to, like you're about to close your doors or something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the scenario, but yeah, I think you're right. You got to rebuild trust, so do that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. C. Stewart. Hello.
Let me get unmuted here. Hello.
Hello.
My question is about, well, I have some donors, let's just call them the Smiths.
Okay, great.
They give consistently. Last year they gave 80,000
Oh,
and year to date, they're at 50,000 now.
mhm.
In November and December, they normally they'll do like a $20,000 gift maybe in November and then an additional 10 in December. So
Great.
they're
Okay.
on track to do the 80,000 again.
I see. Okay.
And I've never asked them. And I guess that's part of my dilemma. So because they're giving so consistently, I guess I don't want to feel greedy. Like if somebody, so they consistently give like every couple months. So for me to go and say, hey, well, could you give a bigger gift? I mean, that is my goal to do that. I've been building a relationship with them. So they literally start giving in 2020, just out of the blue, had never contacted or been a part of our organization. we do Meals on, one of the things that we do is Meals on Wheels. So that's kind of where their heart is, their passion. And they're here in Michigan for for the summer months, and then they go to Texas for the winter months. And they also give, I know she shared there for the Meals on Wheels program. So, I mean, when someone is consistently giving to you like that, I mean, I guess if it's like a specific ask, I would, but okay, my one other thing with this is we're in a capital campaign. I like sent them capital campaign information or everything. So they never ever responded to that. Anytime I reach out to them, like, hey, I want to set up a meeting, with you and our CEO, it's like crickets. They never respond to that. When they're in town, when we get a gift, I go out because it's like all I have is with their address. I do have a phone number now, or a cell phone number I got just from going out there. I will just stop by because I'll have some flowers and a thank you for her because I know what her favorite flowers are. So with their first gift, that's what I did because I didn't have anything else. So I just went and I talked to her on the porch. This was during COVID, and so I've just been trying to establish a relationship with them.
Yeah. Do you know why they do it? Why do they give? Because they live in Michigan, and why Meals on Wheels?
I asked them, I asked her that question when the first time and she was just like, at that time, again, it was in 2020. She was like, we know, people are in need, and that's just our way of helping. She didn't have, because I thought, okay, are we serving someone maybe in your family? And it was like, no. And she was like, we just know, people are going through a really hard time and we just want to be able to help. I know now, they have children, they're all grown and they own their own business and she works basically for him. So he's like, oh yeah, our kids are grown and they have everything they need. And so he did share like one or two other organizations that they give to. So I went out as I was talking to her this time, I was like, hey, we really need, she's like, I know, I really need to come. And, she said, I haven't been to the organization, which shocked me because again, like anytime I've, reached out for some type of meeting, they, just crickets. No, they will not, they just didn't respond, but just continue to build a rapport with them. And so now that she said that, and she's like, oh, it'll be in September. So of course I'm ready to reach out now. It's like, hey, let's get our meeting. I'd love to get our meeting set up. And then, so that's where I feel like I will ask some more of those questions to really feel like, they have to have something. Again, they just want to help people is basically all she shared with me as to why they give to Meals on Wheels, because they feel like that's a great place for them, for their money to help people. I've actually convinced them to not give specific to Meals on Wheels, but to our organization as a whole.
Right. Great.
So
Pro
they
moves.
have changed. Excuse me?
I said pro moves right there.
Yeah. So yeah.
So what would you like to ask for?
I really would like, I guess I want them to help with our capital campaign, and we need a 6-figure gift for that. So I guess that's my overall with them. Would they be willing to help with our capital campaign? Because we should be at the end of it, but we aren't because costs have, are so high and it keeps going up and up. So I know they have the capacity because these are literally just like personal checks they write out. It's just like one little check in a little envelope that they've handwritten out, and you know what I mean? So it's not coming from a DAF or their retirement.
Right.
So I would like to ask for a 6-figure gift.
So what's your capital campaign goal?
Initially, it was 3 million because we were doing renovations to the building, which is now extended out to 4 million.
Okay. By when?
Well, the capital campaign was supposed to end at the end of 2023. But because we need an extra million, we're going until I get it, basically. But technically, I would say to the end of this year, or I would say into the new year, into 2025, at least through June.
Okay. So let's just say June 2025. You got to give
Okay.
people a deadline. It can't
Okay.
just be open-ended. That's part of the challenge. It's part of the problem, right? So just you could just say, and I would give yourself maybe a little bit of a buffer.
Okay.
Because it keeps getting pushed back, right? So maybe
Right.
December 2025, we need to
Mhm.
raise, if your goal is 4 million, how much have you already secured towards that?
Like 3.2 million.
Great.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Congratulations.
Thank
So
you.
that's how I would frame it. That's how I would position it. We need to raise 5 million. We've already secured 3.2. Is that what you just
Mhm.
said?
Yeah.
Great. People are excited to invest in something that is a winning team, right? And they know, oh, you're not coming to me and I'm the only person and I'm
Right.
eh. So great. You want to ask them for 6 figures. What amount?
I would really like to go for 250,000.
And why is that?
It would put me a much further along the way. From I feel like they have the capacity. I feel like they've been giving now for 4 years. So I feel like they are, very interested or compassionate about what it is that we do. Basically, I need about 500,000 more. If I can get them to do 250 and get, 2 other people that maybe, do 100 and another person to get, I kind of broke it down like that. And so they were top on my list for that amount. That's how I broke it down.
Got it.
250.
So then why wouldn't you ask them for 500? Is there a reason why?
Because that's a really big jump from 80,000. I mean, so is 250. I figure like, okay, I feel like they can do it, but going from 80,000 to 500,000, I thought might be a bigger stretch. I don't know. I was probably being too conservative because I've never gotten that amount from an individual donor.
Got it.
before.
So it's a stretch for you, but
Mhm.
based on what you're saying, it may not be a stretch for them.
Right. That's true.
So I like that you've already secured all this funding. That puts you in a very strong position.
Okay.
I would go to them and say, look, all we need is 500K to close out this capital campaign. And what you just said, I heard what you just said. You're at the top of my list.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they
right?
are.
And here are the reasons why. Because you get it. You understand that people need help. And this is not a building. This is about our capacity to help more people.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Right. So you tell them what's what. And don't negotiate them down for you. They could tell you. They'll come back and say, oh, that's too much.
Okay.
And then maybe they will give 250.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Or 300. Also, I wouldn't break it up over years. I would say, I want you to give 500K.
Okay.
And then see, they'll tell you. They'll be like, oh, find out, right? And this is all in the Ask Amount ebook too. If they say yes, here's what I would do. If they say no, here's what I would. What would you say is the probability they'll give 500K?
I think at least 75%.
Ooh.
I do.
Then maybe you should ask for more. You like that?
Let me get to
I'm
5
crazy.
first.
I know. I'm nuts. It's fine. I know. Listen, because we're trying to change the world. You know what I'm saying? So like, what are we doing here? You know what I mean? Like, I think that's fantastic. So then we're projecting 375. That's solid. And then you could leverage that and say, hey, look, we just had a private donor give 375. We need somebody else to step up and do the last 125. Will you be that person?
Yeah. Awesome.
Right. I think that's great. But I like, based on what you've said, I like them for the 500K.
Okay. Yeah, I've just built a rapport with them, little by little, just literally just going to their home.
That's great. I love it.
Okay, well, thank you.
And I would
500K.
just, when you're asking for the meeting, I would be up front and say, hey, I really want you to consider investing in this campaign. You're the top of my list, and explicitly tell them the character traits of why you like them for this, because they're generous, because they're committed, because they're passionate, because they understand the need. All of those reasons. They've been giving for years.
Yes.
Right? And those are the reasons why.
Okay.
And then when they understand that, they're going to be more, that'll increase your likelihood of getting the meeting. It's not a meeting just to meet.
Right.
And you've already secured the 3 point or the,
Yeah.
4.5 or what did you say? 3.5. So that's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love it. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're doing great. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great day.